folks, we're going to have a quick look at the key quotes from Act 1, Scenes 3 and 4 now. Two really interesting scenes where we can see the snowball effect, I suppose, of Lear's abdication take hold. These are scenes in which Goneril voices her frustration at Lear. We're not given a specific timeline by Shakespeare, but they take place a number of weeks after the abdication. Goneril is in charge of her part of the kingdom. By the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's generally supposed that Goneril, if you like, gets the northern half because she's married to Albany, and Albany is refers to Scotland, and then Cornwall is obviously the south of England. So that's Regan's part, but anyway, it's of no real importance. But Goneril, she's supposed to be a queen, and her rule, or her word should be law. But in this scene, we find that Lear's not behaving in a way which respects her authority, and she knew this was going to happen, and her frustration with Lear, and therefore her determination to challenge him and to bring him to an understanding of the new reality that he created through the abdication, that is apparent in this scene. So we don't need, again, you're going to read the little summary there. It's nice and simple. And we just need to look at this speech. It's really, really, really interesting. It's what we call a monologue. I got to do this in the last video, so I'm kind of used to it now. Don't forget to use your notes box to write things down as we go through, and don't forget the key words related to what we're going to discuss in this act and scene, and the next one are in the word cloud. But if you look at the monologue that she delivers here to her, she's speaking to her steward. His name is Oswald. He's like a servant. And she says, "By day and night he wrongs me." Not brilliant. She's angry. Lear is behaving in a way which is incessantly insulting to her. Now don't forget, when he was king, if anybody even hinted they'd insult him, the dragon came out, the bow got bent. But here he is, he's handed her royal authority, and he's insulting her, and she's really annoyed. "By day and night he wrongs me. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or other that sets all at odds." He's causing chaos because there's confusion. Who's in charge here? Is she in charge, or is he in charge? He's undermining her authority. That goes against his duty to the kingdom, which is to support order. She says brilliantly, "I'll not endure it." I usually get students to learn those two pieces. We underline there with an ellipsis. "By day and night he wrongs me, ... I'll not endure it." It's a really good piece of dialogue which captures her frustration at that point. She says, "As knights grow riotous," that's a reference to his retinue, this army of 100 knights that are Lear has demanded as part of the terms of his abdication, and himself upbraids us at every trifle. Now, I really like that. Upbraids us at every trifle, on every trifle. So a trifle is a trivial matter. To upbraid is to give out to criticise, to chastise, to correct. So Lear's interfering with the business of government on every level. And this goes against what he said he was trying to do when he abdicated, which was to prevent future strife. He's here guaranteeing strife. So Goneril decides, I want to get rid of him. Let him to my sister, that's Regan, whose mind and mine I know in that are one, not to be overruled. So here we can see that Regan and Goneril have had a conversation. The word conspiracy is often used here. I don't know if it's necessarily that formal. But Regan and Goneril have had a chat. And when they had this conversation, they realised, look, we've got to show him, we've got to support each other. Because if we don't, as Regan said in the end of Act 1, Scene 1, this last surrender of his will but offend us. We'll just end up back where we were, in his grasp, under the rule of his thumb, humiliated, debased and demeaned. So Goneril is determined that's not going to happen. And then, again, I say this in every video. Just the play is just magnificent. It's just full of great lines. She says, idle old man, that still would manage those authorities that he had given away. Now again, when we analyse Goneril later on, when we look at her overall role in the play, she comes out as one of the villains. She is immoral. She is corrupt. She is she lacks the kind of integrity and dignity that we associate with, for example, Cordelia or Kent. But that quote points to something true and real. The problem here is not Goneril. The problem is Lear himself. Lear abdicated, and yet he's behaving as if he hasn't. Look at the lines. Idle old man, which means, stupid old guy. You're trying to manage those authorities that you've given away. You abdicated, you resigned, you handed over power, and now you're trying to act like that never happened. Well, Goneril's not having it. And that's the source of the conflict. So while Goneril has to be judged in the round for her behaviour in a negative sense, we must never forget the role that Lear himself played in this conflict. If we move now, please, to page 16 of the document, we're going to have a look at Act 1, Scene 4. And this is where that conflict between Goneril and Lear comes to a head. It's where the two, where Goneril challenges Lear, and his reaction is exactly what she's looking for. She's manipulating him here. He doesn't even realise what's going on. But again, that it's difficult to feel sorry for him because he's the source of the conflict. And again, there's certain things you say to your kids and there's certain things you should never say. For example, in Act 1, Scene 1, Lear told Cordelia he wished she was never born. Well, his language to Goneril here, if it could be worse, is worse, and has the effect again of alienating us from Lear at the beginning of the play and illustrating why we might have some empathy, if not sympathy, with Goneril at this stage of the play. So, if we move on to page 17, let's have a look at the key quotes. The scene begins with Kent's arrival. Now, Kent has adopted a persona, which means he's pretending to be someone that he's not. He's pretending to be... Oh, I'm after doing something wrong there. He's pretending to be a servant called Caius. Again, this is all in the notes. Because when Kent challenged Lear in Act 1, Scene 1, and he was subsequently banished and told, get out of the kingdom, and if you're caught within 7 days, you'll be killed. He could have just left and said, well, stuff you, Lear. I tried to warn you. I tried to do the right thing. Look at the way you treated me. But Kent isn't capable of doing that because he is the personification of loyalty and duty. So he has decided to come back and serve Lear, even though Lear has condemned his life, which means put a death sentence on him. But he can't come back as the Earl of Kent because that will result in conflict. So he comes back disguised as this kind of peasant called Caius or Gaius. And when he does come back, he announces that arrival with this lovely line, now banished Kent, if thou canst serve where thou dost stand condemned. And once again, we have Shakespeare's use of juxtaposition, which helps make a point. Why would you want to serve somebody who has ordered for you to be killed? Because for you, duty, if you're Kent, duty outweighs personal interest. What Lear did, Kent, as far as Kent is concerned, was foolish, but doesn't take away or dilute Kent's duty. And Kent's duty is to serve and to try to protect Lear, even if, as he perceives here, that protection needs to protect him from himself. When he talks to Lear and he looks for a job or he looks to be appointed as one of Lear's servants, there's a bit of dramatic irony because he tells Lear, when Lear says, why should I hire you? And Kent says, well, in the form of Caius, says, I can keep honest counsel, ride, run, mar a curious tale with the telling it, and deliver a plain message bluntly. And of course, the wonderful dramatic irony there is that Kent delivered a plain message in Act 1, Scene 1, and for that was threatened, banished and condemned. Here he says, well, you can, if you hire me, I'll always tell you the truth. And Lear, unaware of who he's talking to, says, oh yeah, that sounds great. I really want people to tell me the truth, and hires Kent. So there's a bit of irony and a little bit of humour there. We hear from a knight, a member of the retinue, that Lear hasn't been treated with the kind of respect he would expect. Your Highness is not entertained with that ceremonious affection as you were wont. So again, this is Shakespeare kind of foreshadowing what's coming, the conflict between Lear and Goneril. In the previous scene, Goneril gave an instruction to Oswald to maybe ignore her father, or to disrespect her father, to try and provoke him into some reaction that she can exploit. And then we have this wonderful, wonderful moment. And I just want to dwell on this for a second. When the knight tells Kent about the fool. Now, I haven't mentioned the fool before in these videos, but again, if you look at the menu, you'll see there's a lot of detail on the fool, especially in the mind map analysis. The fool is Lear's court jester, and he plays a really important role in the play, which I'm not going to get into now. But I'm just going to say this about him. Like Kent, he is loyal. Like Kent, he is selfless. Like Kent, he will not abandon Lear, even though it makes more sense for him to do so. So like Kent, he plays a symbolic role in the play as a representation of decency and honour. There's an observation made by the knight here. It's, since my young lady's going into France, the fool has much pined him away. It's a line I've always really liked from the play. And I suppose one of the reasons was because many years ago a student said to me, my teacher says that means that the fool is in love with Cordelia. And of course, your initial reaction when you hear those things is to say, what a load of nonsense. The fact is, we don't know. You can never say for certain what Shakespeare means in these lines. But the fact is this. The idea that the fool, a servant, would be in love with the king's daughter is nonsensical. To pine yourself away is to be miserable, is to be really unhappy. The fool has been really unhappy because since Cordelia's gone to France. Not because Cordelia has gone to France and he's in love with Cordelia, but because in going to France, Cordelia has left Lear unprotected from Goneril, Regan, and from himself. The reason the fool is miserable is not because he loves Cordelia, but because he loves Lear. And unlike Lear, he can see the danger that the king is now in. It's a really interesting moment. The fool, when he comes in, delivers some brilliant lines. He tells Kent, talks about Lear, says, why, this fellow has banished 2 of his daughters and did the 3rd a blessing against his will. The words appear to be nonsensical. They appear to be gibberish. But most things the fool says, if you drill down into them, there's real meaning. 2 of his daughters he's banished. What does that mean? Well, it means that Lear, in giving power to Goneril and Regan, and at the same time trying to hold on to power, the name and all the addition to a king, has guaranteed that there will be division between him and those 2 daughters. And when he says done the 3rd a blessing against his will, he means Lear didn't mean to do Cordelia a favour when he disowned her, but he did her a favour because he got her out of here so she's not here to experience what's coming. The fool is not a fool. He can see what's coming, and what's coming is suffering. And the fool is able to, the intimacy of his relationship with Lear, he's able to convey to Lear the truth of a situation without fear of the kind of backlash that Kent received or Cordelia received. There's a wonderful piece of dialogue here. It's a wonderful little interaction. Lear asks him, the fool offers Lear his coxcomb, C-O-X-C-O-M-B. It's like his jester's hat. It's a fool's hat. He offers Lear the coxcomb, and Lear says, Dost thou call me fool, boy? Are you saying I'm a fool? And in a moment that seems cruel, but is actually quite poignant and moving, the fool says, well, I might as well, because all thy other titles thou hast given away. And that moment is a real, it's a moment of emotion in the play. The fool is not being cruel there. He's trying to get Lear to see the truth of a situation, because he knows that as long as Lear continues to behave the way he's behaving, Goneril and Regan are going to have to act and Lear will be defenceless. And what he's saying is, you are a fool because you abdicated. In one of the best lines in the play, the fool tells Lear, thou hadst little wit in thy bald crown when thou gavest thy golden one away. Thou made thy daughters thy mothers. You were stupid. Your brain wasn't working when you abdicated. Look what you did. You had all the power and you gave it to your children. Now you're the child and they're the parent. The imagery, the wit, W-I-T, the insights, the playful use of language, it's just really beautiful in terms of Shakespeare's skill, but also magnificently insightful in terms of the fool's observations. And it's at that point, of course, that the great conflict takes place. Goneril, majestic in her royalty and her authority, comes into her father and speaks to him in a way that he's never been spoken to in his life. And no one ever would have spoken to him like this were it not for his own decision, his foolish decision to abdicate. And she tells him, get your boys under control, and if you don't, I will. She threatens him. Look at the line. That shame itself does speak for instant remedy. Be there desired by her that else will take the thing she begs, a little to disquantity your train. By her that else will take the thing she begs. She's telling him, your knights are out of order. There's too many of them. They can't be controlled. You need to sort it out. If you don't sort it out, I will. She's telling him she has power and he doesn't. She's telling him to be obedient. And when she says she wants him to disquantity his train, she knows exactly what she's doing. His train is his retinue. His retinue are his 100 knights. For Lear, those 100 knights, that private army, are symbolic of his power. When she tells him to reduce the numbers in his retinue, to reduce the number of knights in his followers, she's telling him he has no power. And Lear can't accept that. He can't accept that that is the truth, even though it is the truth. And remember, while we might look at her here and think she's being cruel, and look at him here and feel somewhat sorry for the befuddled old man, remember, he placed her in an, remember this word, invidious position. What choice does she have other than to show him who's boss? He made her boss. He gave her royal authority. If she doesn't assert her power, there will be chaos. Lear's not able to see it like that. His vanity, his pomposity, his ego, his hubris means that he sees her what is a perfectly reasonable request as an act of hate. And he responds by lashing out and saying something that it's hard to hear. He says, amongst other things, into her womb convey sterility. Now, what does that mean? He's saying, I curse you. I curse you that you will never have children. Imagine saying that to your own child. On the one hand, it feeds that narrative of Lear at the beginning of the play as this kind of unpleasant bully this abuser of power, this old fool who lashes out against people who try to stand up to him. On the other hand, there's an element of pathos or sadness there. All he's got left is words because he has no authority. And then when he threatens her and he says, "Thou shalt find that I'll resume the shape which thou dost think I have cast off forever." When he says that, he's just proving to Goneril that she was right to provoke him, right to have this conflict with him, right to assert her authority. Because what he's saying is, now you're not treating me with respect. I'm going to take my power back. What he can't see is that he's not able to take his power back. Once you abdicate, once you transfer power, that's permanent. So he is a somewhat pathetic figure here. We don't admire him yet, but our perception of him is slightly changing. He leaves Goneril's castle, condemning her, and says he's going to go to Regan. She'll look after him. She'll respect him. But of course, dramatic irony, true dramatic irony, we know he's not going to get a welcome party there either, because Goneril and Regan are working in tandem.